The dawn was a lie. At 0600 station time, the universe held its breath. Aboard the silver and blue needle of New Horizons Station, drifting on the silent, star-dusted frontier of human space, Commander Sarah Chen tasted the bitter tang of her morning coffee, a last mundane sacrament before the sky fell. The first warning flashed across her datapad, not as a light, but as a fissure in reality. The liquid in her cup trembled, a tiny seismic event presaging the cataclysm to come. Unidentified vessels, multiple contacts, military configuration. The words were cold, clinical, and they carried the weight of extinction. Before the silence claims us all, make sure our story is heard. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this tale with everyone who needs to remember what we fight for. Comment below with the name of someone you'd cross the stars to protect. Sarah moved, a woman transformed from scientist to soldier in the space of a heartbeat. The command center hummed with a new, terrible energy, the sound of peace shattering. Her second in command, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, met her gaze. His face was the color of lunar dust. 15 ships, Commander. Big. Military class. They're not answering hails. On the main display, 15 crimson dots advanced in flawless, predatory formation. New Horizon was a place of quiet wonder. Home to 847 souls. Astrophysicists dreaming of nebulas, xenobotanists whispering to alien flora. Children who knew the shapes of constellations better than war. Its defenses were an afterthought, meant for micrometeoroids and scavengers, not the closing jaws of an empire. Keep trying, Sarah ordered, her voice a calm lake over a volcanic deep. All frequencies. Tell them we are civilians. Tell them we are not a target. The response, when it came, was a study in absolute zero. The face that filled the view screen was a topography of ancient malice. Dark green scales, eyes like burning sulfur. Its voice was the grinding of continental plates. Human station. I am War Master Zethar of the Krell Dominion. This system is now ours. Evacuate. You have 1 hour. Any who remain will be erased. The air grew thin. Sarah's mind fragmented. One piece calculating trajectories and escape pod vectors. Another clinging to the memory of her 9-year-old daughter, Maya, asleep in their quarters. A stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. War Master, Sarah began. Diplomacy a shield she knew was made of glass. This is neutral space. Our presence is legal, peaceful. There can be shared access. You misunderstand. The reptile's eyes narrowed, absorbing her hope like a black hole absorbs light. This is not a negotiation. It is an order. 1 hour. The screen went dark, leaving behind a silence more deafening than any explosion. What followed was a symphony of desperation. The station, never designed for doom, convulsed with frantic life. Corridors became rivers of fear, scientists clutching data drives like newborn infants, engineers screaming over schematics, parents clutching children so tightly it seemed they might merge into single, terrified organisms. Sarah, a rock in the chaos, issued orders with machine-like precision. Get me Earth Command. Emergency channel. Initiate evacuation protocol. Everyone to the pods. The numbers were a cruel equation. 20 escape pods. 50 people each, if they packed in like cordwood. 1,000 maximum. 847 souls. It was possible. It was a prayer. But the Krell were apostles of a darker god. They did not wait the hour. At the 47th minute, they offered their reply. The first missile struck the station's heart, the power core. The universe flickered, died, and was reborn in the hellish strobe of emergency crimson. The station shuddered, a great beast mortally wounded. "They're firing!" Marcus's cry was raw. "Targeting the escape pods." Sarah's blood crystallized. What? On the screen, small, hopeful dots representing fleeing pods winked out, one by one. Silent. Final. Each a tiny sun snuffed out. 50 lives, 50 stories, 50 futures turned to plasma and memory. A botanist who loved strange flowers. A botanist who joked about the recyclers. A child. Evasive patterns. Launch all at once. Scatter. Sarah's commands were arrows shot into a hurricane. It was too late. The Krell had woven a cage of fire around the station. Pods launched into a gallery of slaughter, detonated before they could even clear the docking bay. The count was a descending dirge. Pods launched 16, destroyed 15, launched 17, destroyed 16. The station was coming apart. A second detonation tore through a lower deck, the sound a monstrous roar. Smoke, thick and acrid, coiled through the command center. Through the chaos, a single desperate miracle. Pod 19, piloted by a genius or a madman, used the station's own disintegrating corpse as a shield, weaving through debris, vanishing into the expanding cloud of wreckage. "Pod 19 is away," Marcus shouted, his voice cracking with a painful hope. "They've reached jump distance, FTL spooling. One pod, 50 souls. A single ember carried from a bonfire of 1,000. It was not salvation. It was a seed." Then, the main console erupted in a shower of sparks. The station lurched violently, the shriek of tearing metal a sound from a primordial nightmare. Hull breach, multiple breaches. Sections 7 through 12. Venting atmosphere. Sarah grabbed her communicator, her voice the last thread holding sanity together. "All hands, emergency shelters, seal all." The words died, strangled in her throat. On her ruined console, a schematic flickered. The residential sector, Maya's room. It glowed a vicious, terminal red. Venting atmosphere. Maya. The commander vanished. Only the mother remained. Sarah ran. She ran through corridors that were now gullets of hell, past viewports where trapped comrades beat against transparent steel, their screams silent in the vacuum. She hurdled crackling conduits, sidestepped fires that burned without oxygen, ignored the terrible, graceful ballet of bodies floating in zero-G. She ran toward the residential wing, toward a single room, toward a promise she had made at a daughter's birth. She never made it. The corridor ahead dissolved in a sun-bright fury as a Krell missile punched through the hull. The world became sound and force and pain. Sarah felt herself lifted, thrown, a doll in the fist of a giant. Her head struck a beam, and the darkness that welcomed her was not that of the void, but of oblivion. Consciousness returned, piecemeal, painful. She was floating. Her emergency suit had cocooned her, a second skin against the absolute cold. Before her, New Horizon Station died. It was no longer a place of science and dreams. It was a jagged sculpture of ruptured metal, vomiting gouts of flame and frozen atmosphere into the eternal night. Circling it, sleek and pitiless, Krell warships darted in, delivering final, contemptuous strikes to the carcass. Then a crackle, a voice, thin and static-laced. yet sweeter than any symphony. Anyone, this is Pod 19. Any survivors? Please respond. Sarah fumbled, numb fingers finding the transmit button. This is Commander Chen. Her voice was a stranger's, rusted and broken. I'm here. Commander, thank God, we're coming back. No. The word was a bolt, sharp and absolute. You run. You get to Earth. You tell them. Promise me you'll tell them everything. A pause, heavy with the weight of understanding. Then, the voice returned, softer. Commander, Maya is with us. She made it. She's safe. The universe, for one perfect, merciful moment, stopped. Sarah closed her eyes. Tears welled and detached, forming tiny, orbiting galaxies of grief and relief. Her daughter, one precious thread, pulled from the unraveling tapestry. Then you definitely run, Sarah whispered, her voice now pure, unadulterated love. You keep her safe, and you tell Earth what the Krell did here. We will, Commander. We'll tell them. The comms went silent. Sarah watched as Pod 19's FTL drive ignited, a brief, brilliant star, and vanished. 50 saved, 800 gone. The arithmetic of atrocity. She floated, a solitary monument in the dark. Then, a shape resolved before her. A Krell soldier, armored for the void, weapon raised. It pointed the muzzle at her chest. Sarah Chen looked past the weapon, into the cold, reptilian eyes. She did not beg. She did not flinch. Drawing on a final reservoir of strength, she straightened her spine, a commander to the last. You have made a mistake, she said. Each word a crystal of certainty. Earth will come for you, and when they do, you will finally understand what it means to wake a sleeping dragon. The Krell soldier's head tilted, a gesture of faint alien amusement. It fired. Sarah's last thought was not of fire, or pain, or the void. It was of a little girl with dark hair, racing toward a blue planet, carrying a story that would now, must now, set the stars themselves aflame. Far away, on the bridge of the Krell flagship, War Master Zethor watched the final destruction of New Horizon with deep satisfaction. A clean, efficient lesson. He ordered the footage broadcast across the galactic net. Let all species see the fate of those who impede the Dominion. His first officer leaned in. Shall we proceed to the next human outpost? There are 7 in this sector alone, lightly defended. Zethor considered. The humans had responded with hails, then pleas, then silence. Their galactic council would send condemnations. There would be words, always words. He saw the human commander again in his mind's eye, floating defiant before the muzzle. Her final phrase echoed, absurd in its grandeur. A sleeping dragon, a quaint metaphor from a dead species. No, Zethor decided, dismissing the faint, cold tremor in his gut. We return to Krellis. This victory is sufficient. Let the humans despair in the shadow of our might. The Krell Armada turned, a swarm of deadly jewels, and began the long journey home. Behind them, they left only debris, ice, and the echoes of 847 unanswered screams. They did not look back. It was their first and greatest tactical error. The truth arrived on Earth, not with a bang, but with a whimper. A battered escape pod, scorched and pockmarked by debris, settling onto a landing pad like a dying bird. From its wounded hull emerged not warriors, but ghosts. 50 had boarded Pod 19. Only 12 survived the harrowing flight. Among them, a small, hollow-eyed girl named Maya Chen clutched a stuffed rabbit, its fur matted with soot and dried tears. The story they carried was not data. It was a psychic plague. They spoke of unprovoked aggression, of shattered diplomacy, of a 1-hour deadline that proved to be a liar's promise. They described, in voices that shook with the trauma of witness, the systematic hunting and destruction of escape pods, lifeboats deliberately targeted, transformed into coffins of light. They spoke of 835 murders. A number. A hollow, inadequate word for the symphony of lives silenced. The botanist who went back for more. The engineer who sealed a hatch from the wrong side. The mother who never came. And they delivered Sarah Chen's final, crackling testament. Tell them. Earth listened. And then, Earth went silent. Across the humming networks of human space, the news spread like a shockwave, followed by a profound, terrifying quiet. The Galactic Council's messages of condolence and urgent restraint piled up in diplomatic queues, unread. Offers of mediation from neutral species vanished into the void. Humanity, for the first time in its interstellar history, had stopped talking. It was the quiet of a deep breath before a scream, of a spring coiling past its breaking point. In the Terran Defense Fleet headquarters, a citadel of polished steel and cold light carved into lunar bedrock, Admiral Marcus Cross stood before a panoramic window. Below, the blue marble of Earth turned, innocent and fragile. On his desk, a datapad glowed, displaying a mosaic of faces from New Horizon. 847 smiles. 847 stories. Children with gap-toothed grins. Couples with interlaced fingers. Researchers posing with alien blooms. He did not see scientists. He saw his own failure, rendered in pixels and soul-crushing detail. His aide, a young commander whose usual demeanor was one of unflappable efficiency, entered. His steps were too soft. Admiral, the Council is convening. They demand a response. What are your orders? Admiral Cross did not turn. His reflection in the ferroglass was a ghost over the planet. When he spoke, his voice was the sound of ice calving from a glacier. Send a message to all fleet commanders. Priority Omega. Full strategic recall. Every ship, every weapon, every round of ammunition. From the Martian patrol cutters to the Jovian perimeter dreadnoughts. Bring it all home. The aide swallowed, the sound loud in the tomb-like quiet. Sir, what shall I tell the Galactic Council? Slowly Marcus Cross turned. His eyes, the color of weathered flint, held no room for debate. Tell them Earth is busy. Tell them we'll talk when we're finished. Finished with what, sir? The Admiral's gaze returned to the datapad, to the children who would never grow up, to the daughter who now had no mother. He picked it up, the weight of it, far beyond its physical mass. Finishing a lesson, he said, each word a hammerfall. They wanted to send a message with their massacre. Now it's our turn. He locked eyes with his aide. Prepare Protocol Nightfall. The young commander's face drained of color. Protocol Nightfall. The unthinkable. The final solution contingency. A plan wrapped in layers of ethical firewalls. Drafted by Cross himself in a moment of bleak foresight a decade prior. A plan for an existential threat. A plan that suspended all rules of engagement, all concepts of proportionality. a plan for the absolute, unequivocal elimination of a threat. Sir, are you certain? Cross held up the datapad, the faces glowing softly. They killed our children, he said, the simplicity of the statement making it infinitely more complex. What else is there to be certain about? The Terran Council Chamber, a vast amphitheater designed for reasoned debate, had become a cathedral of palpable fury. 200 representatives sat, not in their usual chatter, but in a silence so thick it pressed on the eardrums. The air screen at the chamber's apex flickered to life. It did not show charts or tactical readouts. It showed a little girl. Maya Chen, swaddled in a medical blanket that swallowed her whole, sat in a sterile interview room. Her eyes were vast, dark pools that had seen the end of the world. A gentle-voiced counselor held her hand. "Can you tell us what happened, sweetheart?" Maya's voice was a tiny, broken thing. "The alarms went off. Mommy said get my bag. She said go to the pods. She promised she'd meet me there." She described the rush, the kind botanist, Dr. Patterson, who carried her, who showed her pictures of flowers, who went back to help others and never returned. Then the horror. We launched, but the other pods, they just exploded. The Krell ships shot them. On purpose. She began to shake, the memory a physical tremor. Why would they do that? We weren't soldiers. The chamber held its collective breath. Grown men and women, hardened politicians, wept silent, shameful tears. "Did you see your mother again?" Maya shook her head, a small, devastating motion. "She called on the radio. She said she loved me. She said to be brave." The little girl looked directly into the camera, her gaze somehow piercing every soul in the room. "She said Earth would come for us. She said Earth would make it right." The screen went black. The silence that followed was not passive. It was a living, hungry thing. Secretary General David Okonkwo, a man whose career was a monument to patience and consensus, rose. His face, usually a mask of calm diplomacy, was now carved from basalt. "You have seen the evidence," his voice boomed, stripped of all ornamentation. "Not a battle, a slaughter, a war crime against the innocent, broadcast as a triumph." He paused, his knuckles white on the podium. "The Galactic Council urges restraint. They preach proportional response. They ask us to be better." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "But I ask you, what are we if we let the murder of our children be answered with a strongly worded letter?" The chamber erupted. Voices rose, a storm of grief and rage. Calls for sanctions, for blockades, for measured military strikes, clashed with a newer, darker, more visceral demand. Vengeance. Total, unambiguous vengeance. It was then that Admiral Cross entered. He did not stride. He advanced, a force of nature in a pressed uniform. The chamber hushed. He walked to the center, a solitary figure on the vast floor, and turned a slow circle, meeting the eyes of friend and foe alike. 23 years ago, he began, his voice not loud, but penetrating every corner. "I was captain of the destroyer Valiant. Pirates attacked a colony ship we escorted. I had a choice: chase the attackers, or stay and defend the civilians against worse odds. I stayed. We saved 2,000 colonists. I lost 30 sailors." He let that hang, the ancient arithmetic of command. "I learned then that power is not a privilege. It is a debt to those who cannot protect themselves. He activated his datapad. A schematic of New Horizon appeared, its 2 tiny defense platforms highlighted. We sent these people to the frontier. We promised them safety. We gave them a flag and a promise. And when the wolves came, we were not there. We broke our promise. 835 people paid for our failure with everything they had, and everything they would ever be. He switched the display. Protocol Nightfall bloomed on every screen in the chamber. A stark, brutal document of strategic annihilation. This is not a plan for a skirmish. It is a plan to remove, permanently, the capacity of a threat to harm our species ever again. It requires the full mobilization of our fleet. It requires the suspension of peacetime rules. It requires us to look into the abyss of total war and not blink. A representative stood, her voice trembling. Admiral, this reads like a blueprint for genocide. No, Cross replied, iron in his tone. It is a blueprint for certainty. The Krell government ordered this. Their military executed it. Their war master gloated over it. They sought to terrify the galaxy with their cruelty. He gestured to where Maya's image had been. I propose we show them what truly inspires terror, the absolute, irrevocable consequence of harming a human child. We show them that Earth does not forget, Earth does not forgive, and Earth will cross 1,000 light-years of hell to balance the scales. Justice or revenge. Another voice called out. Cross's smile was a thin, cold line. When someone slaughters your family, is there a difference? The galaxy is watching. If we hesitate now, how long before another predator sees us as easy prey? How many more stations must burn? How many more Mayas must be orphaned before the number becomes acceptable? Secretary General Okonkwo raised a hand. The chamber stilled. Admiral, if we approve this, what, specifically, will you do? Cross's face became a graven image. We will take the assembled fleet to Krell space. We will demand the immediate, unconditional surrender of War Master Zethor and every officer complicit in the massacre. If they refuse, he paused, the next words falling like stones into a well. We will dismantle the Krell Dominion's ability to wage war. Fleet, infrastructure, command. We will reduce their jewel to a monument of their own folly. The vote was not a process, it was a catharsis. Hands rose, not in hesitant assent, but in a unified surge of wrathful resolve. 187 in favor, 13 against. The silence returned, heavier than before. Okonkwo looked at Cross, and in that look was the passing of a terrible torch. Admiral Cross, you are authorized. You have the fleet. You have no restrictions. Do what must be done. Across human space, the silent command was heard. From the mining outposts of the asteroid belt to the research stations orbiting glowing gas giants, from the lush colony worlds to the lonely long-haul freighters, every ship capable of movement turned its nose toward Sol. It was not a mobilization. It was a homecoming of wrath. Trading vessels stuffed with extra fuel pods, science ships with their sensor arrays recalibrated for war, colony transports repurposed as troop carriers. And at the heart of it, the Terran Defense Fleet, a mosaic of sleek destroyers, hulking battleships, and agile carriers, converged. The fleet that coalesced above Earth was not just a military force. It was a storm given shape. 200 warships, their hulls still scarred from pirate skirmishes and micrometeoroid showers, now gleamed with fresh paint and a singular, terrible purpose. The flagship, a newly christened Leviathan-class command vessel, bore a name chosen by the surviving crew of Pod 19, Retribution. Admiral Cross stood on its bridge, watching the last ships fall into formation. The Galactic Council's pleas had become a shrill, ignored chorus. Their final message blinked on a secondary screen. "You are precipitating a galactic catastrophe. Stand down." Cross deleted it unread. He opened a fleet-wide channel. His voice echoed in the mess halls, on the bridges, in the engine rooms of 200 ships. 3 weeks ago, the Krell Dominion taught us a lesson in cruelty. Today, we begin the journey to teach them a lesson in consequence. We go not for conquest, not for territory. We go for the 835, for Sarah Chen, for Dr. Patterson, for every stolen future. We go to write in fire and steel a law that all species will understand. Harm humanity, and you will be erased. May history judge us, but let the galaxy fear us. All ships, prepare for FTL jump. Destination, Krellis. As one, 200 ships powered their jump drives. Space itself seemed to flinch, then tear, as a constellation of artificial suns flared and vanished, leaving behind only a ripple of disturbed void and a silence more profound than any that had come before. The dragon, sleep well and truly banished, was now in motion, and it was hungry. The 3-week journey to Krellis was a voyage through a galaxy holding its breath. The human armada, a 200-ship spear point of polished alloy and cold resolve, moved with a silence that was more threatening than any war cry. They passed through the territories of nervous neighbors, the crystalline Vorlons, the mercantile hegemony, the pacifist Nexians. Each species sent probes, then emissaries, then warnings. Admiral Marcus Cross acknowledged none of them. The only response from the fleet was the relentless, undeviating line of its course, a scar drawn across the star charts, straight toward the heart of the Dominion. Aboard the Retribution, the mood was a paradox of fury and focus. Crew members moved with an eerie, efficient quiet. In the mess halls, they did not boast or speak of glory. They showed each other hollows, a sister, a cousin, a friend, all with the same final date stamp, New Horizon. They were not an army marching to war. They were 200 ships carrying 835 open graves, and they intended to deliver them personally. Commander James Holland, Cross's executive officer, felt the moral tectonics shifting beneath his feet. He found a young ensign, a boy really, crying softly over a picture of his sibling, a botanist on the station. "Is it right, sir?" the ensign asked, his voice raw. "What we're about to do, I want them to pay. But will we become the monsters?" Holland had no easy answer. He carried his own ghost, the image of his 7-year-old daughter's laugh. "There are no clean hands in war, son," he said, the Admiral's own words feeling both true and inadequate. "Only necessary ones. The Krell were coming for 7 more stations. We are here to make sure there are no more pictures like that one, ever again." On the 18th day, the fleet reached the edge of Krell space. Long-range sensors painted a terrifying picture, a defensive sphere of 5,000 Krell warships encasing their homeworld, Krell Prime. The numbers were absurd, 25 to 1. A suicide mission by any standard doctrine. In the Retribution's war room, the senior captains gathered, their faces lit by the tactical hologram of the armada before them. There was fear, but it was buried deep beneath a bedrock of grim determination. "They outnumber us," Cross began, his voice calm, almost conversational. "They have the defensive position. They expect us to charge, to die gloriously, to prove our honor." He zoomed the display in on the Krell formation, a dense, brutish wall of firepower. "So we will not charge. We will not fight their war. We will fight ours." He outlined the plan. Wolfpack tactics, Delta formation. Their 200 ships would splinter into 20 autonomous packs of 10. They would not form a battle line. They would become a swarm of vipers, striking at seams, severing communications, sowing chaos. Their technological edge, faster targeting, harder shields, railguns that fired rods of tungsten and a fraction of light speed, would be their force multiplier. "They believe war is about mass," Cross concluded, his eyes like chips of obsidian. "We will teach them it is about precision and consequence." The final briefing turned to the unspoken question. Captain Elizabeth Reeves of the battleship Vindicator gave it voice. "Admiral, the planet, what is the order?" Every eye locked on Cross. The air grew still. He did not flinch. "First, we break their fleet. Then, we offer their government one chance, to surrender Zethor and his butchers. If they refuse, he let the silence answer for him. We dismantle their ability to make war. Completely. Permanently. Any ship commander who cannot follow that order to its conclusion may withdraw after the fleet engagement. No judgment. No court-martial. This burden must be chosen." No one moved. No one spoke. The choice had been made light years ago, in a council chamber stained with a little girl's tears. Cross dismissed them. Only Holland remained. "James, the weight of this." "I'll stand with you, sir," Holland said, the words final. "To the end." On the bridge, Cross sent one last fleet-wide communiqué. It contained no poetry, no inspiration. It was 3 lines. "For New Horizon. For the 835. Make it count. In the Krell Command Citadel on Krell Prime, War Master Zethor received the reports with disdain. 200 ships? This is their great vengeance? They send a peacekeeping force to a war." He laughed, a dry, rustling sound. "Order the fleet to advance. Crush them. I want the human admiral's ship intact. I will mount its bridge on my wall." The Krell Armada surged forward, a tidal wave of darkened metal and glowing weapon ports. They moved with the arrogant, predictable rhythm of a species that had bullied its way to supremacy for centuries. They saw the human fleet split apart and smirked at the perceived panic. They roared their challenges across the void and plunged headlong into the trap. "All ships," Cross said, his voice flat on the quiet bridge of the Retribution. "Hold fire. Let them commit." Space itself seemed to tense. The Krell wave closed, an avalanche of destructive potential. 1,000 kilometers. 500. 200. Warning sirens blared. The first volley of Krell plasma fire lit the dark, brilliant and deadly. Now, the human fleet erupted. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration. A clinic. Human railgun rounds, invisible until impact, tore through the lead Krell battleships like tissue. Plasma lances, refined to stellar core intensities, sliced vessels in half. Quantum torpedoes bypassed shields entirely, materializing inside engineering bays and detonating. The first 30 seconds of the engagement erased 200 Krell ships from existence. The confident roar of the Krell Armada, stuttered into a cacophony of shock and alarm. The human wolf packs moved. They were fluid, merciless, intelligent. They darted through the Krell formation, not as a stand-up fight, but as a series of surgical strikes. They targeted engines, communication arrays, weapon hubs. They crippled and isolated, letting momentum and confusion do the rest. The Krell numbers became a liability. Their ships clogged their own firing lanes, collided in panic, broadcast frantic, unheeded orders. On the bridge of the Krell flagship, Zethar watched his grand fleet disintegrate. The tactical displays fritzed with loss of signal alerts. "How?" he snarled, his claws digging into his command throne. "They are supposed to break." A human destroyer, the HSL Dauntless, flashed across his main viewer, so close he could see the scorch marks on its hull. Its weapons locked onto his bridge. Zethar froze, staring into the abyss. A human voice, young and cold, crackled over an open channel. "War Master Zethar, Admiral Cross sends his regards. He says you are not worth killing yet. He wants you to watch your fleet die first." The destroyer peeled away, leaving Zethar trembling, not with fear, but with a dawning, horrific understanding. This was not a military defeat. It was a premeditated humiliation, a punishment. For 12 hours, the slaughter continued. The human fleet was a scalpel in a world of clubs. When the Krell tried to retreat, the wolf packs harried them. When they tried to rally, a precision strike decapitated their command node. The space around Krell Prime became a graveyard of shattered hulls and frozen atmosphere. Finally, it was over. The mighty Krell Armada was gone. 800 survivors limped behind planetary defense grids, broken. 4,200 ships were dust. The human fleet reformed above the jewel-blue curve of Krell Prime. It was marred now. 18 human ships lost, others scarred and venting. But it held the high ground. Cross opened a channel, broadcasting on every frequency to the planet below. "People of Krell Prime, this is Admiral Marcus Cross of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your military is defeated. You have one opportunity. Surrender War Master Zethar and every officer involved in the New Horizon massacre for trial. You have 2 hours. The response from the Krell High Council was frantic, wheedling. Unauthorized action. Condemn the violence. Discuss reparations. Cross cut them off. You misunderstand. I am not here to discuss. I am here to deliver justice. 2 hours. The planet descended into civil war. The military faction refused surrender. The civilian government pleaded. The 2 hours bled away. No answer came. Cross's face, displayed on every screen across the planet, showed no anger. Only a terrible, infinite resolve. You have chosen to protect murderers over your own survival. So be it. A final warning. You have 24 hours to evacuate this world. Take your families, your children. In 1 day, this fleet will begin orbital bombardment. Krell Prime will be rendered uninhabitable. This is your only mercy. Panic, pure and absolute, consumed a world. Millions scrambled for shuttles, for freighters, for anything that could fly. The skies filled with fleeing craft. The human fleet watched, a silent jury, and let them go. Zethar himself, from his crippled flagship, begged. He offered his surrender, his life. "Spare my people. The crime is mine." Cross's reply was etched in ice. You gave New Horizon 47 minutes and shot their escape pods. I have given your civilians a day and safe passage. That is the difference between you and me. You wanted a lesson in strength, War Master. Class is now in session. 24 hours passed, then 30. Cross gave them every second. Then he gave the order. All ships, commence protocol nightfall. What followed was not an attack. It was a geological event. Kinetic bombardment rods from God, streaked down, each impact a localized earthquake. Plasma beams carved continents like a knife through flesh. The orbital defense platforms were swatted aside. Military bases, shipyards, government complexes, power grids, the infrastructure of an empire, were systematically, meticulously unmade. The planet's atmosphere began to cook. Firestorms birthed themselves. The oceans steamed. Aboard the Retribution, Commander Holland watched, his soul sick. Admiral, sensors indicate 4 billion still on the surface. We've crossed a line. Cross stood at the viewport, his reflection superimposed over the burning world. The line was crossed at New Horizon, James. I am not erasing it. I am drawing it in planetary fire so no one ever misses it again. His voice was hollow, haunted, but unyielding. Continue the bombardment. Reduce their capability to 0. For 18 hours they poured fury onto the cradle of Krell's civilization. When they stopped, Krell Prime was dead. Its atmosphere was a toxic soup. Its surface was a radioactive, glassed-over hellscape. A monument to a single, fatal miscalculation. Cross opened a final channel to the ragged fleet of Krell refugee ships fleeing into the dark. Zethor, you wanted the galaxy to fear the Krell. Now, they will fear what happens when you make humanity your enemy. The 40,000 of you who escaped will be granted asylum. You will be safe. Your children will grow. You will rebuild. A civilization that remembers this day. A civilization that understands. Harm humanity and you will be erased. He turned to Holland. The deed was done. Signal the fleet. We are going home. The journey back was a silent funeral march. There was no victory in their hearts. Only ash. They had become the monster to slay the monster. They had traded a piece of their soul for a galaxy's fear. When the fleet returned to Earth, there were no cheering crowds. Only a solemn, trembling silence. In the council chamber, Admiral Cross delivered his report to a stunned, horrified assembly. He did not justify. He stated facts. The Krell fleet destroyed. Their homeworld lifeless. 4 billion dead. He took full responsibility. A counselor accused him of genocide. Cross looked at her, his eyes holding the ghosts of 2 worlds. I regret every life lost. But I regret the lives lost at New Horizon more. The Krell were coming for 7 more stations. They were coming for your children next. I made a choice to end that threat forever. Judge me. History will. But ask yourself, as you tuck your own children into their safe beds tonight, would you have preferred I chose differently? He was placed on permanent leave. Not as punishment, but as recognition of a burden no one's soul should carry. 10 years passed. The galaxy learned. Attacks on human interests ceased. Alliances were offered from species who once offered only condescension. The doctrine of certainty became the bedrock of human policy. Harm us and face total annihilation. It was a dark peace, but it was peace. On the 10th anniversary, an old man and a young woman stood before the New Horizon Memorial. Its stone, etched with 835 names. Admiral Marcus Cross, his hair white, his frame bowed by memory, spoke not of triumph, but of cost. Maya Chen, now a diplomat known for her work in conflict resolution, listened. After she approached him, "They say you are a hero and a war criminal." "They are right," he said simply. "Do you regret it?" she asked, the question she had carried for a decade. He watched the setting sun paint the monument in gold. "I regret that it was necessary. I will regret the price until my last breath, but I do not regret the choice. Because of that choice, you grew up. Because of that choice, other little girls get to keep their mothers. The galaxy is quiet now, Maya. It is a terrible, ugly quiet, but it is quiet." She nodded, understanding the horrific equation. Her life, and millions of others, purchased with billions of souls. "We work together now, Admiral. My diplomacy only works because of the shadow your fleet casts." "Then our burdens have meaning," he said. "Across the galaxy, the story is told, not as a tale of heroism, but as a warning." Carved into the still radioactive glass of Krell Prime is a plaque written in every major language. "Here died an empire that forgot the first rule of the Dark. Never attack those who have more to lose than you do. They lost 835. We lost a world. Let this be eternal proof. Humanity protects its own, and the cost of harming them is absolute." The message echoes through the void, clear, simple, and terrible. The age of human patience is over. The dragon is awake, and its memory is long, its reach longer, and its wrath is the end of worlds.